My brother Corey Soul, welcome to the Be Powerful podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, dude. Guys, we're in the studio today. This is the first time that I've recorded at my house. First time kind of setting up my own little studio. So we're real official here with an air conditioning unit and a towel on top to hopefully dampen some of the sound. A funny story, I actually, on my second episode, I filmed with, do you know Jack Staub?
Mm-hmm.
I filmed with Jack Staub, and I didn't know that you could use one mic and both talk into it, and like the sound would be decent. So we set up two separate, like he was in one room with a mic, and I was in the other room with a mic, and we did it over Zoom.
Nice.
And it was just not as obviously this is more, I don't know, just more personal. Casual. Yeah, more personal because we're both here.
Well, you make me feel comfortable, so I'm glad we're sitting here together.
Cool. That's good, dude. I feel like a lot of people have told me that my nervousness and my anxiety and stuff makes people feel just like, oh, I can do this. If he can do this, I can do this. And that's kind of part of this vision, is to inspire people to just do whatever it is that they want to do, and know that your voice is powerful and your experiences are unique to you, and anybody can impact this world,
I love that.
Yeah. So, a little backstory for the listener. Me and Soul are both in recovery. We met at a sober living house. Soul was house manager at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't really necessarily remember when we started clicking, but I do remember going to that show with you, going to Flux Pavilion. And that was kind of, I'd say, the start of our friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good time. Yeah. Early recovery is fun, man.
Yeah.
I try not to take anything except recovery seriously during that time. And that whole year wasn't about work or, anything like global issues. I wasn't listening to the news. It was just get plugged in, have fun, do the deal, period.
That is exactly what you were all about. And I think that's what I saw in you was oh, this dude's he's having fun. He's working out. He's really involved in the community. He likes to go to shows. He likes to experience life, and yeah, you're also a very generous person, and you always want other people to experience life with you. So I felt really just comfortable with you as well, because you always would bring me along and stuff. And I was in, early recovery as well. I was 2 months sober or something when I showed up at that house. And that was I had not been to rehab in a good 3 or 4 years. And, I ended up having a pretty bad relapse and then going back into treatment. And so that was tough for me to kind of go back into treatment, and then showing up at that house, I was a little bit out of sorts, I guess. I wasn't,
sure.
I was just getting back into the swing of things. And so you definitely made me feel welcome and stuff at the house.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, dude. And look at us now. Yeah. So what I like to start off with, and I know it's kind of a difficult question, but I like to ask it because I think that it gets people really thinking. And that question is, who are you?
Oof. Well, there's definitely a duplicity there. I think I've always considered myself an inherently good person. I think one of the terrible issues about the disease of alcoholism or addiction is that it really doesn't matter what your values are as a human being or your intentions. When we're in our addiction, that our disease it renders us unable to live in alignment with those values. And so when you ask me who I am, I think even during all of the times in my life where I wasn't doing good things, I was inherently still me. I was still a good person. But it's difficult because the world um, will judge us on our actions and not our intentions. And so if you ask somebody else who I am, somebody from one of my dark times, they'll probably tell you I'm a piece of shit, and but you're asking me, and I think that I'm a good person. Recovery allows me to live and act in alignment with that. So I'm really grateful, but yeah, man, it's a difficult situation, having the disease that you and I have, where we struggle to be who we really are.
Yeah, that's a good answer. First off, I want to say I can definitely relate to that, and how in my past, when I was in my addiction, yeah, you might ask someone about me and they might tell you I'm a total fucking piece of shit and I don't care about anyone but myself and I'm selfish and I'm, you know, evil, possibly, bad intentions. But that's not who I am at all. This is who I am and this is who you are. And we're great people. I did want to tap into what you said about addiction being a disease. And I know this is going to be a very controversial topic. But do you truly believe that your addiction is a disease?
Yes. The American Medical Association diagnosed alcoholism as a disease in the 50s. I believe it was 54. And in the mid 80s, they included addiction in that category. Um, and it's in my genetics. My dad was a terrible alcoholic. His dad was a terrible alcoholic. And so I come from a long line of diseased mofos,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's the American Medical Association is like the entity that, you know, classifies this stuff, and all the research that went behind it, they agree that's what it is. Insurance pays for rehabilitation in a lot of situations because it is a disease and it's considered such. It's fatal if not treated. It's terminal, and so yeah, I think it's a disease. Um, Not to knock the effects of trauma or anything like that, but I believe in 99% of cases there's a genetic component somewhere. It's not always true. I've talked to people who say they don't know another alcoholic or addict in their entire family, and that maybe their situation is conditional based on how their environment and stuff like that. But I think for most of us, there's a genetic component that makes it what it is, a disease.
Yeah, I can say for myself, like, when I do alter my state of mind, whether it's smoking weed or it's drinking alcohol or it's doing something as bad as, my previous drugs of choice, heroin and meth, it appears like it's a disease. Like I feel very out of control. I become a completely different person, even if I'm just smoking weed. Like, everyone around me is like, you are different. There's something different about you. You are not the same person that you were when you're sober. Your spirit is deadened. You're not as full of life. You're not passionate. You're not even that, like, great to be around,
Yeah.
And, like, I feel that in my consciousness when I'm under the influence. Like, I'm not great to be around.
Yeah, it takes over.
It kind of takes over. Yeah. I have a really hard time identifying with the fact that it's a disease, and maybe that's just my So like in recovery, right, they would probably tell me that that's my disease. That's my illness, is that I don't think that I have an issue, right? Um, but yeah, my perspective is like, I believe that there are genetic components to it. I believe that it does run in my family. Not everyone is a drug addict or an alcoholic, but people in my, family do seem to struggle with being workaholics or abusing alcohol or kind of using different things to cope and obsessing over different coping mechanisms and stuff. So I do believe that there's that aspect of it. And I also believe that I can heal from this,
Sure.
Illness. I believe it's a mental illness. That's just me. That's me personally. I believe that.
Well, mental illnesses are diseases too, right? They treat mental illness with medications, and like they have different treatments, but yeah, it's a disease of the mind. They say that in recovery.
Right.
I agree.
Okay. Cool. Glad we were able to discuss that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got a different, perspective. And
Yeah,
stuff.
and I think the main aspect of that's important for me. Well, one, that it's fatal, right? If I can't treat it, I'll eventually die from it.
Right.
And then two, that I'm always going to have it.
Right.
And you were talking about the kind of the way the disease plays tricks on you. That mine does the same thing, where it's like I come into recovery with all these like problems, right? Like I have this debt or that debt. I have this legal issue. I have no car, no job. I've burned relationships. All these like very concrete problems, and then you come in and you start working on these things, and you get these things back or solved in your life, and then all of a sudden you feel like, oh, maybe I don't have that disease, right? Like it's really hard to know throughout sobriety the whole time that like, hey, I definitely still have this disease. Like, you really have. That's why we really have to concede that that's what we have. Otherwise, long-term sobriety is very, very difficult.
Yeah. My past has shown that, every time that I've tried to get sober, I get to a point where same thing. I start to pay off the medical bills. I start to pay off the debt. I start to build my relationships back up. I start to make amends. I start to do all the things that the program suggests will give us our life back and give us that connection with a higher power. And things start to get drastically better. And then I start to be like, oh, okay, well, now I can go back to smoking weed and doing mushrooms
Sure.
and drinking casually and everything like that. And it pulls me out of the program, right? So now I no longer have that support. I no longer have the accountability with, commitments, recovery-related service commitments and stuff. I'm no longer working with other alcoholics and addicts. I'm no longer pushing that needle forward and growing deeper in my recovery. So then I, automatically just start going back to the normal weekend, quote unquote party scene where they're going to concerts and they're taking mushrooms and they're drinking a little alcohol and everything like that. And then that obsession begins in me, right? And then inevitably the next thing I do is I take Xanax or I take I do
what
heroin.
you really want.
Right, what I really want, exactly, because I feel like nobody, like a lot of my friends will never quite understand that, and like I get that. You don't understand that because you've never shot heroin, or meth. And yeah, it's like, I want to believe that someday I will be able to just drink casually or do psychedelics or whatever. But it's like, deep down, I know it's kind of a pipe dream,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The great obsession of every alcoholic, that one day we'll be able to drink normally.
Yeah. And it becomes that same thing every time. and I'm watching out for it right now because it's been cropping up in my life right now. And I know that I have to move forward in my recovery or else I will go back.
Sure.
You know? But that's hard to admit, and that's hard to explain to somebody who, like, for instance, some of my friends who just believe in, I mean, like, it's like, yeah, your mind, you know, your reality becomes like, oh, I'm an addict if I'm thinking I'm an addict. But like, yeah, you and I know that it's like we've tried all those different things. We've tried mindfulness. We've tried, like, those are all crucial parts of our recovery, but that's not the thing that's going to keep us connected to God and to keep us, like, it's like the idea that this is a life or death thing for us and that we have to be willing to go to any length to maintain abstinence. That's like a crucial part, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. So I want to understand a little bit more about where things started, like where you started to kind of struggle with addiction. So I want to know a little bit about your childhood and what things were like growing up and how you got to the point of like struggling with substance abuse.
Yeah. So, well, I grew up in New Orleans, and you know, things are crazy there. It's really not a place you want to raise kids. I mean,
That's what I hear.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, like I said, my dad was a really bad alcoholic. He's from South Boston, Dorchester to be exact, which is like another terrible place to raise kids. Um, we grew up on right by City Park, and you know, I got to see my dad struggle from the very beginning. And what's crazy is that my dad is, I mean, I consider him to be like a genius, and a lot of other people do too. I mean, he was just a fantastic artist, just a brilliant guy, and he ran a printing company off of Magazine Street. And but you as a kid, you never knew what you were going to get that night. You know, like, were you going to get the brilliant, really cool dad, or were you going to get this freaking maniac, dude?
Yeah.
I mean, he was a maniac.
Totally.
And so, you know, my mom, when I was around 4, she couldn't put up with it anymore, and so we left in the middle of the night. We left. I remember that night, and for a while it was just her and I. And she's amazing. She's not one of us. She's not an alcoholic or an addict. She was a photographer for the New Orleans newspaper, the Times-Picayune. So that offered me all kind of cool experiences. And you know, my dad got sober when I was about 5 or 6, and I think he put together about 5 or 6 years in AA. And I would see him, you know, every other weekend, and those trips were great. I mean, we would go to the art museum, and he would, you know, we'd sit in front of a painting and just draw it together, and he'd teach me how to draw, or we'd go walk around the old graveyards, like all these really cool memories. In the summer, he'd send me to the New Orleans School of Glass and Metalworks. It was like an art camp, which was just the coolest. And then whenever I was around 11 or 12, he relapsed. And he didn't show up to pick me up from that camp one day until it was already dark, and I had to duck and dodge the counselors to kind of so they could leave, and I just sat and waited. And, you know, downtown New Orleans, I mean, he showed up completely wasted, and he told me he was going to teach me how to drive that night. Oh, no. And so I drove home, and I think I saw him maybe 1 or 2 more times after that. He's still alive, but he's completely succumbed to the disease. I mean, he called me up and he said, I'm moving to New Mexico and I'm going to go drink. And I talked to him one other time on the phone since then. And as far as I know, he's still alive, you know, but I mean, he's got the obsession like I got it. You know, he's willing to give up just about everything. Luckily for me, I had a wonderful stepfather come into my life and into the picture and kind of take the reins as a male figure, and he is one of just the most honorable men you could ever meet. Very modest, smart, you know, caring, and my addiction didn't really start till late. I mean, I did some stuff in high school, but you know, and you were talking about this a second ago. I remember just caring a lot more than everyone else about what kind of substances we were going to do that night or if we could get them. For everybody, it's like when you're a young person, it's going to be a part of the night if we can make it a part of the night. But when most people were willing to just like let it go, like we can't get any more tonight or whatever, I'm like, there's a way, you know, like there's a way we could get it. Let me make some more calls.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So
That was
I
me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I noticed that early, right? Like I was just a little bit more focused.
Yeah.
Around this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Um,
That's a good way to say it. Focused.
Yeah.
We're focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it felt right.
Felt right.
It felt right.
It felt like purpose. It felt like it was like our identity.
Yes.
My identity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if I could get this, then we'll definitely have a good night. You know.
But if not, it's like totally fucking hopeless, and life has no point.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might come around, you know, eventually, like, and have a good time, but I'm gonna obsess for about an hour at least, you know, like this is, you know, and you ruin nights like that, right? But yeah, man, I'm a heroin addict, meth addict, crack too. Those are probably my top three.
You were.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I always will be.
Yeah.
Always will be, right? Over 2 years sober now. But yeah, I got to remember, dude, that's what I am when I start changing the way that I feel. Like, and it may, like you said, it may start with weed or beer or whatever. But eventually I'm going to go to what I want. Right. Yeah. That didn't start till later. I'll be 40 this year. And, so whenever I was in my 20s, the Lortabs were really big and the Oxycontin, and everybody had prescriptions because they were giving them out. And so there was a lot of my friends and everyone that kind of got looped into that. But that's really when it started.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of hydrocodone and all those different things were around when I was, you know, 8th, 9th grade and stuff. And like, I would just take them like just kind of casually, like not even really think anything of it. Like maybe I felt something, maybe I didn't, but I don't know. It still just felt cool to like have them and like be taking them. And
I thought the feeling of opiates, like Lortabs, was very, very chill. Like
really
it wasn't like I lost control or anything like that. I was still completely coherent.
Yeah.
I just felt a little warm and a little good. It seemed very innocent at the time.
Totally innocent. I can relate to that so much. Like, it just turned the noise in my head down a little bit. It just relaxed the nerves in my body, and like, I just felt a little bit more like okay in my skin.
Yeah,
you know?
But not like the way Xanax does. I mean, it was really, you're still coherent. There's no memory loss. It's really just the body.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean in comparison to Xanax. Xanax was like, I'm careless. I don't give a shit about anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal from you. Yeah. I became such a klepto on Xanax, dude. Oh, my God.
You and a lot of other people. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I would tell a story about me robbing someone, but I want to hear your story. You know, this is about you. We can go there another time.
I'd love it.
Yeah. But yeah. So how old were you when you started taking painkillers and stuff?
Yeah, so I got married whenever I was, I think, 25,
Okay.
and I had taken them casually up until then. Um, that marriage was like pretty stressful. It wasn't really a great relationship. It wasn't a great match. Um, we had a couple of kids, and it was like, um, I remember just kind of being generally unhappy with the situation, and I started to take them daily, right?
Mhm.
Like, and once you're in that cycle of like daily opiate use for a period of time, you know, right? You get dope sick when you don't have it.
Right.
I am a complete wuss, man. Like, I will not deal with physical discomfort,
Yeah.
and so it became like an obsession soon after that. Um, uh, and again, my buddies were getting OCs at this time, so we started like snorting those every day, and then like it just gradually progressed.
Yeah. So for the listener, OCs are Oxycontin pills,
Yeah, Oxycontin.
and
Yep.
they are pretty much like if you hear about like fentanyl and stuff nowadays, they're putting fentanyl into these
Pills that look like
pressed,
OCs.
yeah, pills that look like Oxycontin.
Yeah.
But when you were using and when I started using, I was getting those blue 30s.
The real ones.
Yeah, the real
Yeah.
ones.
And
they
hardly
were-
anybody ever overdosed. back then.
Nobody, not nobody, but hardly anybody ever overdosed because they were real. They were safe. I mean, they were safe to a certain extent because they were real and they were dosed. You knew exactly what was in every single pill.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like Russian roulette like it is now,
Totally.
right? And to go back talking about being dope sick for the listener, I personally would compare withdrawing from opiates similar to withdrawing from uh, social media or withdrawing from nicotine. Like it's just this feeling of like extreme discomfort and like you need to change the way you feel, but add in like some physical symptoms of like the flu and
Mm-hmm.
like a fever and just severe like bodily restlessness. Like you just
Totally.
you can't, like you're just like, oh, I'm gonna freak out,
Yeah.
like,
And $20 will make it go away.
and $20 will make it go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a journey for me. It was like when I first started using, I used for like a year and a half straight because the fact that it could go away so quick with $20, exactly like you're saying, it became every day that I wanted to stop. It was like by 4 p.m. I had already decided, like after sitting through those withdrawals for like a good 6 hours, like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then like, the end of the day rolls around. You're just like, fuck it. I'll stop tomorrow.
Yeah. It beats you into submission.
It beats you into submission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. I hear that. So you're saying that you were in a marriage that, you just kind of grew up a little too quick. Marriage, kids, everything. You were generally not very happy and you started self-medicating.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of my friends had started, they had started IVing OCs already.
Okay.
And that was like the line in the sand for me. Like I was never going to do that. Not a big fan of needles, kind of like that's too far,
Mm-hmm.
kind of deal. And this one particular day, I had found out what for me was just devastating news. And the news was that my wife at the time, we got married when she was pregnant, right,
Mm-hmm.
for my daughter, and that she might not know that she might have not known that my daughter was mine, and she married me anyway without telling me. And for a young man with, we have a lot of pride when we're young men, like that was really, really hard. Now it's not her fault, that I reacted the way I reacted. That's all on me.
Mm-hmm.
But that particular day, just by chance, I was at my buddy's house already when I found this out, and they had the door open, and they always had the door closed, but this day they had the door open, and my buddy was like, "You want a shot?" You know, because I told him what happened, and I was like, "Yeah, man, you know, just do it for me," you know, kind of deal. And all of the terrible feelings and all of the you know, just that, like, oh my God, my life is collapsing, just melted away.
Melted away. Yeah.
And I was completely hooked from that moment on.
Mm-hmm.
The obsession really just totally took control from that moment. I wanted that all the time, every day, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And what used to be like, oh, I need to find something, you know, to feel better, became like, if I don't have this, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna, yeah. If anybody gets in my way, like I'm gonna run them over.
You won't get my way.
You won't get in my way. Yeah. No, I know.
I will
dude.
go around you.
I'll never forget the first time I shot up.
Yeah.
Like it was like that same sort of thing. Like I didn't even realize that something could feel so good.
Yeah.
You know, like it was such. I didn't realize until further along in my addiction that this whole action of like sticking a needle in my arm was so like just the ultimate like submission. Like I'm just submitting to this fucking feeling, and like that's it.
Totally.
That it's now gonna rule my fucking life.
Yeah,
you know?
It's almost a form of like self-harm or like
Very
you
much
said,
so.
submission. You get addicted to the ritual.
It was the ritual, was everything. Especially
hunts,
once you learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things got pretty bad after that. I went a couple years kind of hiding it from my ex-wife and like managing as best as I could. We moved to Houston, and I went like a month or two without, you know, like I pretty much kicked. And we got in a big fight again this one particular evening, and I was like, I'm going to go find it in Houston, you know. So I did, and once I found it there, it completely took over again. I ended up losing pretty much everything in about 3 months. I worked at Apple at the time, at the Apple store, and I would like take an iPad every day from work and go pawn it and do this and that. And this is not me, by the way. You know me, right? This is like crazy, dude.
It's nobody does that sober. Like that's nobody. I mean, at least I guess there's no. That's sick people.
Yeah,
that's sick people.
Totally.
Nobody does that sober.
Right.
Nobody steals from their work to go buy their friend a gift or something. You know what I mean? You steal to survive.
Yep. Yeah, and I ended up getting jumped a couple times in the third ward, and I would, you know, my car got stolen.
The third ward
of Houston.
Okay.
It's like,
I don't know what that is.
Dude, the hood.
Okay.
The hood.
Yeah.
And I used to wander around there all hours of the night. Like I would walk, you know. Mm-hmm. I'd walk there if I had to, and I did.
Yeah.
So I pretty much lost everything. I had to call my parents, man. I was cold. I was on the side of the interstate, you know, and they came pick me up, and they brought me to detox in Houston for the first time. Mm-hmm. I lasted about 3 days. The obsession just took over, and I just stole someone's $20 in there and jumped the fence, and I walked like 5 miles to the third ward again, smoked $20 worth of crack with a bunch of homeless people, and it just went like that, you know. And we would do it in this abandoned house, and they had these little candles because there was no electricity. And as soon as I finished that thing, the last candle went out, and I was in the pitch black. It was freezing cold. It was like 5 a.m. I just walked 5 miles to do this, and I still had to walk back, you know. It was just like this moment of like, and this old guy that I used to smoke crack with, he leaned over and he was like, you know, when a lizard lives among green things, he turns green. And I was like, damn. You know, like basically, like if you keep doing this, you're gonna be
Be
right.
one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So I walked
Holy
back.
shit. That's heavy.
Yeah, I walked back to the detox. I ended up getting kicked out that morning when I returned, and it took me 3 more years to find recovery again.
So it was a wild ride for a little bit.
Ended up getting divorced in that time, which also is like, fuck it now, you know, like let me just take this all the way.
Right.
Yeah, and when I did find recovery, the next time I called my mom and asked for help again after a couple years, and I had cops were looking for me. Like I was living out of the computer lab, out of the apartment complex that I used to live that I got evicted from. I had no
computer
car.
lab.
Yeah, because I knew the password.
Yeah.
And I'd have to clear out at like 6 a.m. and so I guess I was homeless. You asked about something. Technically, I'm homeless in this part of the story.
Being homeless, especially for any like normie. Like, nobody lives in a computer lab. You know?
Yeah. So, anyways, man, I called this friend, dude. This friend of mine, he saved my life twice now. He was like, "Yeah, dude, sounds like you're out of options." You know, He was like, "Well, I'll give you an option. I'll give you a way out. You come out to my." He lived in a little trailer out in the woods. He said, "Come out to my place. We'll party for 2 weeks. I'll buy everything. I'll supply it. And at the end of 2 weeks, you got to go to rehab." And all I heard in that moment was like, 2 weeks, free drugs.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So at the end of 2 weeks, he woke me up in the morning with my mom on the phone. And he was like, so my mom came get me. And she brought me out to Texas, man. She brought me out to Texas. They were like, "We're not going to put you out of rehab anywhere near city limits." Because we know what that looks like.
Yeah.
And so I went out to Wimberley. And
did you go to the Right Step?
Yeah.
Oh, so did I.
Yeah.
I went there twice.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a good experience out there, man.
Who's your counselor?
She's not there anymore, and I can't remember her name, but Big John is the
Big John.
Big John's the man, dude.
Big John's the man.
I did not have Big John, but I know Big John.
Shout out to John Bowman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah. And I had a great experience. I put together a couple years sober after that. And then can I talk about my reservation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to share this because this is how it went for me. Life was really good, dude. Those couple years sober, I had built like this just great life, great job, great friends, family restored, everything working out. But I remember having this thought in meetings, and it was about opiates, right? Because that was like my main drug of choice, and it was like, surely there must be some people that make it to rehab that aren't really alcoholic addicts, like don't have the disease, but who have been prescribed for a period of time and have the physical withdrawal that they can't escape, right? So they need treatment.
Right.
Maybe that was me. Maybe this whole recovery for life thing is overkill. Maybe AA for life was never the goal. When I just wanted to stop shooting dope.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not really an alcoholic addict. And that thought didn't sway me immediately. I mean, that was a quiet thought that grew louder and louder over the last year of sobriety. And even when I picked up a chip, that was my last meeting, I went another 6 months on fear alone, But I considered it. And just the fact that I considered it all that time, and I didn't tell anybody about it, that nobody sits there and fucking obsesses for a year and a half over something like that. Like, can I do this again?
Yeah.
Safely,
Yeah. Except that's the great obsession that we struggle with every day.
Totally.
Yeah. I think about it every day still.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do.
I mean, dude.
It's like a fleeting thought. It's not very long, but it's like every morning I do have to remind myself that, like.
Totally. Oh, dude, I was thinking about it this morning.
Yeah.
And what's weird is if I think about it long enough, I'll have physical reactions. My butthole will start puckering. I'll fucking get all nervous and kind of excited, like what it could be like, So like when that shit comes up, dude, I gotta do something. I gotta do something. Yeah.
Why your butthole?
Well, you know, when you get excited, like it's like, I don't know. I think that's a reaction.
Dude,
right?
yeah. I mean, like when I would like, I mean, even before I ever touched meth, which meth is like, you know, a stimulant. So it's like,
Yeah.
it gets you really excited when you start thinking about it. But heroin, like when I would start thinking about heroin, like my stomach would start gurgling,
Coke
I'd start
too, man.
farting, and like, start, you know, like you're just like, your whole body's just
Yeah,
like,
dude, it's like,
yeah, it's
that's
like-
how obsessed we are. man.
yeah, I know.
You know?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's like butterflies when you're a teenager and you fall in love. You know,
Mhm.
it's like that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that's what you know we're up against, and that's why people don't make it back.
Totally.
You know, it's pretty amazing that we have made it out of that. You know,
Sure.
and like,
Yeah, think about the way a teen gets obsessed, you know?
mhm.
Like when they fall in love with a girl and they get broken up with. It's like, I mean, dude, they obsess about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like that strong when I'm in it. Now, nowadays I have some separation.
right.
It's not like that,
Yeah.
but when I'm in it, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah. It's exactly what
you're
it's
willing
like.
to
It's very-
embarrass yourself. You're willing to do all this stuff. Like
Mhm.
if there's a small chance that you can get it.
Yeah.
I was looking at this interview with Robert Downey Jr., who's one of us. I don't
Mhm.
think I'm breaking his anonymity there. Everybody knows that, right? He was a freaking maniac.
Mhm.
And he said that he feels bad for people that aren't alcoholic addicts because they will never know what it's like to really, 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 really want something every day and then get it
Mhm.
every day.
Yeah.
You know, and he's got a point. It's like there is some allure to, like when you're in it, it's like not necessarily the worst life.
Right.
You're-
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's a big problem, is that we did get obsessed with that lifestyle
Yeah.
of like there's so often that I do miss that chase of like, oh my God, like what if I could just completely just throw away everything that I need to do today to like be a better person, and I could just get in my car and call up a fucking dope dealer and just get that dope
Yeah, say fuck it.
and say fuck it to
Yeah.
everything, you know? And I think that is a mindset that so many addicts and alcoholics deal with, that another person, a normie, doesn't know what that's like. They don't understand. They have loved ones who struggle with addiction, and they're like, how could they possibly do that to us? How could they do that to themselves? When really it's, yeah, I mean, it's like this unconscious, just like the desire is so strong that you're willing to just give it all away and even die. And if you died, you'd just die,
Yeah.
you know?
hmm It's weird, man. It's weird because I'm a rational dude in all areas of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to think that I'm rational with like big life decisions like
Mhm.
that. But if I don't have recovery going, like if I don't have a good connection to this thing and a good handle on it, like you said, I will literally throw my life away
Mm-hmm.
in the wrong moment at the wrong time. You know, like my rationale goes out the window.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I know. That's the thing that we struggle with every day. And that's why it's so important to have this type of conversation and to have the support that we have in recovery and stuff, because you literally just cannot talk to a normal person or like someone who doesn't struggle with alcohol or drugs. You can't have that conversation with them because they just don't get that,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, they struggle. I'm sure some get it more than others, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, being in the position that we're in, having lived through it, we do have a unique ability to connect with other people that are need our help.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, big time. So what are some things today that you do when you do have those, like you said you have some separation from the obsession. But what are some things that you do if the obsession does come on really strong?
Well, it has not come on really strong this time in recovery. I have fleeting thoughts from time to time, and the thing about so this is what works for me is I do AA, right?
Mm-hmm.
The book talks about a daily reprieve,
Right.
right? And so my whole strategy, and it's worked so far, has been to do something for my recovery every single day. If it's going to a meeting, great. If it's working with another alcoholic, that's fine. That's my thing for the day. I can do more than one thing for the day, but I must, no ifs, ands, or buts, I must do at least one thing every day. Today it's a podcast. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
When I can't do anything else, pray or meditate. You know,
Mhm.
that doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost much time. You know, I
Mhm.
don't have to leave the house.
Yep.
Call another alcoholic or an
Yeah.
addict. You know, just check in.
Yeah.
These simple things. But if I know that if I go more than 24 hours without doing anything, I'm quite literally in a danger zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I might not relapse that day. I might not relapse that week. You know.
Right.
But if I don't get back to doing something daily,
Mm-hmm.
I know the end result of that.
Right. Yeah, and it just kind of eats at you.
Yeah.
You know, it just slowly eats
Yeah,
at
the voice
you.
gets louder and louder.
Yeah, the voice gets louder and louder, and you know exactly what you need to do in order to stop that voice. But sometimes you just sit in it, you know, and if
Sure.
you sit in it too long, it's over.
Yep.
And it's always been that way. Like for the listeners, so that you guys can maybe understand, you know, an example or compare it to something like, for people who are into exercise or something, like if you don't exercise or you don't do something for something that involves movement for your body, like you start to feel really restless and you start to feel tight and like pent up, like you have this like energy that needs to be released, and you know that you just need to go for a run or you need to do some yoga or you need to hit a workout in the gym. Like in recovery, we call it restless, irritable, and discontent. So when you're not doing the things that the program suggests, like what Soul was just talking about, is we start to feel restless. You know, we start to get irritable, and you start kind of, you know, taking things personally or like getting bent out of shape about little shit. Like physically, your body just doesn't feel as good. You feel just restless, you know? And yeah, if you just sit on that, like I see it time and time again with people in recovery, like you're living in a sober house and you can just tell like, that dude's not doing his work, you know?
Sure.
And like, yeah. And it's tough because I hate like living by the whole, okay, well, if I think that this is going to happen or this is what recovery tells me is going to happen, then it's going to happen. But like, I've tried, you know,
Studies show.
Yeah, studies show that's what happens,
Yeah.
you know, regardless of like, I've been in, and I'm sure you can relate to this, like being in that space of restless, irritable, and discontent and being like, okay, well, I know I'm restless, irritable, and discontent.
Yeah.
I know that the program suggests that I need to do this, this, and this.
Yeah. Let me push it though.
But because I know
yeah,
that I'm restless, irritable, and discontent because of
the rules,
yeah, I'm going to be good and I'm just going to push forward. And I'm just going to do what I want to do and do the things that I think are going to keep me sober. And like, as long as I have awareness, as long as I have knowledge of what my disease says is going to happen, then I'm good.
Self-knowledge. Yeah.
Self-knowledge availeth us nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I remember feeling some of that the first go round. This time, I think I've pulled like an inception on myself. Like, it's my idea to do this. Like, I really want to do all this stuff. I get a lot of joy out of it. it's one of my great honors to have sponsored men and like, be of service and carry the message and go speak at treatment centers and speak on panels at conferences. I mean, I do a good bit of that kind of stuff, and I'm just trying to be helpful, man.
Yeah. Now it's like become just a way of life for us, and it's the best way of life that I've ever had, because I'm sure you can relate to this. My way just simply doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. But when I go to meetings when I don't want to go to a meeting, or I call another alcoholic when I don't want to, or I go out to a treatment center and tell my story, or I go do anything that, like you said, is for my recovery when I don't want to, then I instantly have this amazing spiritual connection, some sort of synchronicity, that reminds me, like, hey, this is the way, this is God's way. And like that other way that you were going to choose, like isolating in a room and watching Netflix and just ruminating on that thought, that's the way that's going to get you closer to the grave.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. I figured I've been selfish for so long, there's just something about, being honest and showing up with integrity. Oh, by the way, all these really abstract ideas that were presented to me when I first got into recovery that made no sense, right? I came in with, like I said, all of these real problems. You can put a number on them, like I owed this much money to this. I had this much time to do this. All these things that you can make a list of. And you guys were telling me the solution was like, show up with integrity and like, show up with love and have this open-mindedness and this willingness and like all of these spiritual principles that were very abstract ideas for like what seemed to me very concrete problems, very real problems. Like money could probably solve most of my problems. That's what I thought when I first got there.
Right.
And so it didn't compute to me that the spiritual solution or like fixing my internal condition would result in fixing all of my external problems. I thought if I could just get the external things out of the way, I would feel okay. And so I was lucky enough to have a sponsor and people around me that were like, dude, this is the way. I know it seems like this isn't the way, and you want like money is the way, and like getting a good job is the way. Like somebody was like, dude, I'm telling you, don't worry about money right now. Let's just work on yourself, and everything else will fall into place.
Yep.
And I think people that have worked the steps, even people that have worked the steps multiple times, have a problem explaining how it works. Like It's difficult to explain.
It's difficult to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for the listener, even somebody who isn't in recovery, but can relate to that whole idea of like, well, I got the job, I got the partner, I got the nice house, the nice car, but I still felt restless, irritable, and discontent. I still felt a lack of self-love, unworthiness, whatever it is, fill in the blank. But then I tried this other way that other people were talking about. Positive affirmations, expressing gratitude, showing up to every situation with love,
religion,
and being of service, religion for some people.
Yeah.
All the different things that, that just feel good. Like it just internally, it just feels good to show up in that way.
Yep.
All your problems are solved. And although like the money and the fame and all the other bullshit that you want maybe doesn't come right away, it all eventually comes tenfold as a result of you first working on yourself, becoming that compassionate, grateful, God-centered or, spiritual centered person. It just happens as a result of becoming that person first.
Yep.
And that's the way the flow of the universe works. That's what everybody's trying to communicate. That's, all these different spiritual teachers on social media, and you've got your motivational speakers, and you've got your people, your ex-drug addicts and alcoholics in recovery. You've got people in religion. You've got people, all the different walks of life. It's all one answer. It's all love. It's all connection. It's all gratitude. It's all leading to one place. But there's just so many different routes of getting there. And this is,
Well, when you come into recovery, you have a pattern and a habit of taking something from the external world and putting it in your life, putting it in you to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're using an external thing to fix my internal condition temporarily.
Yeah.
And so when you come into recovery, that is your methodology. So we come into recovery, we're sober now. We can't grab this external thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we look for the next external thing.
Yeah.
What, the girl, the car, the fucking clothes, whatever it is, whatever your external thing is that you think is going to fix it.
Right.
And the reality is, if we can fix the internal condition, all the external things show up.
Yeah.
Again, can't explain it.
Yeah.
That's been my experience.
Yeah. It's supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. It's crazy.
We start living by these spiritual principles. We start showing up in the world in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it does.
Yeah.
The abundance mindset. I don't know. What do you call it?
Yeah.
But as soon as I just started doing the next right thing, I became very, very blessed with a lot of the things that I thought originally would just fix it.
Yep.
And I see a lot of people come into early recovery confused about that.
Yeah. Everybody in life, whether you're in recovery or not, you see it all around. Like, people are constantly looking for external validation, and then it doesn't come. And then they end up having this, what am I trying to say? Like a breakdown, you know what I mean? Like this, mental breakdown, I can't figure it out my way. So I've got to just try this other way that's being suggested of me. Or maybe I heard something at church, or maybe I heard something on a podcast, or maybe I heard something at a meeting, or
Yeah, we're almost lucky as alcoholics, addicts, because we get that breakdown is so severe.
Yeah.
We come in desperate, right? And we're desperate for anything. And it almost, for me, it takes that amount of desperation to really give spiritual principles a shot.
Right.
Because like you said, daily I'm presented with this my way or this spiritual way. And this my way is always kind of pulling me this, maybe I can do that. I can figure this out, I'm a rational guy. I said it earlier, right?
Yeah.
And because I was given the gift, we call it a gift of desperation.
Gift of desperation. GOD.
Yeah. Because I'm given this gift of desperation when I first get here, I am in a state of complete willingness to live this spiritual way of life. Came in super atheist. I don't try to label it, now.
Yeah.
The spiritual thing is I just know for a fact if I'm not acting good in the world, I lose the connection.
Yeah, immediately.
Yeah. Like when I start being dishonest, the spiritual, I can pray all I want.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But when I show up with honesty, show up with integrity, I do the next right thing, I have what I consider a spiritual connection to my world around me.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to share this story, but I'm going to share it because it is a good example. But for instance, relying on myself and my own means to get by, in early recovery, I've always struggled with stealing, being a klepto. I rob people all the time in my addiction, and it's carried over into my sobriety. And in early recovery, I was stealing all the time just to get by. Oh, I need this supplement. I need this organic food. I need this Like I was like,
Of course,
you know,
that's what it is.
justifying it like, oh, I'm stealing grass-fed ribeyes, like whatever, dude. You know,
Yeah,
like God is like, dude,
Yeah.
he's like supportive of this.
Yeah.
You know,
totally.
and like
They're grass fed.
yeah, they're just grass-fed. It's like comes from the earth. You know, it's like I'm raising my vibration by stealing this fucking steak. So anyway, like I was shoplifting all the time, and like nothing was happening in my life. Nothing was happening. And I tell my sponsor, and he's like, dude, you need to go like make amends for that.
Yeah.
Like you need to go to Whole Foods.
Totally.
You need to go like apologize for that and
Yeah.
like take responsibility for it, you know? And as soon as I got honest about it, as soon as I got, you know, honest with other people in my life, and I still haven't gone and made amends yet, but that is on the list. I'm going to go in there.
Yeah.
I'm actually,
Yeah, you got to do that.
I'm banned from Whole Foods. I almost got arrested. I almost got arrested there. And, but I can go back. I know I'll be able to go back because like I'll show up with my sponsor. I'll bring God into it. I'll show up there and be like, hey, I just want to make things right.
Yeah.
I want to come, you know, say I'm sorry for this.
Yeah, man, I got a lot of relief out of the amends process. Too.
Oh, it's everything, dude.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's so magical. But like, yeah, it was like nothing was happening in my life. And in the back of my head, like I'd be, you know, I'd hit my knees and I'd start praying. I'd just hear like, dude, you're not trusting me at all. Like, how can I work in your life if you're not trusting me with your financial situation and stuff? And like, as soon as I got clean with everything, it was like all these jobs started popping up.
Yep.
Now I have three jobs right now. I'm working 3 different jobs, and everything is just falling into my lap. Like, shout out to everyone who's helping me with the podcast. It's like my friend bought me this mic. My buddy's doing my audio and video. I've got somebody creating a logo for me. It's like everything is happening. My debt's getting paid off. My medical bills are, you know, it's like money's coming in and things are happening in my life, all because I decided to trust.
Yep.
And it's that simple with anything in your life. It's like if you're looking for anything in your life, it's not necessarily going to come at the time that you want it to come. But if you can start stepping out in faith, getting right, cleaning your vessel out, taking responsibility for all the, as Daniel Gertner would say, shout out to DG, own your shit. Own your shit. And things will start happening, you know?
Totally.
Yeah. It's huge, dude.
Yep.
People live their whole lives trying to figure out the way, and they think the way is like, sure, you need money. Sure, you need all these external things, but like, you've got to come first. Your, you know, your spiritual hygiene, your level of selflessness and being of service and showing up with love to everyone around you as best as you can, that has to come first.
Well, I think that, I mean, regardless of what kind of blessings you're given as a result of that, like the real blessing is, for me, is the freedom of the obsession, the freedom from the disease, like the power over this disease that will ruin my life if I let it, you know, like, I could not live, dude. I could not live in a functional way. I could not treat people who I loved in the way that I wanted to treat them. Like my disease goes beyond that.
Right.
And it's more powerful than that when I'm in it. And, you know, nowadays I have freedom.
Yeah.
You know, I'm placed in a state of neutrality. I don't fight. I don't, you know, buck about it. I don't like get overconfident. It's just, you know,
smooth sailing.
It's smooth, and I feel really good about the way that I show up. You know, and it's just crazy, man. Like the transformation is insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I wish that someone in early recovery, someone who's maybe just gone to treatment once and doesn't quite believe that this is like a life or death thing, and like I wish they could just listen to this podcast and just be like, dude, those guys, you know,
They got it.
They got it. Yeah. I'm going to get sober.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
They have to have their own experience, just like we had to have our own experience. Doesn't matter what our friends said, what our parents said, what the doctors said, what the officer said, you know, it's just like it's like,
I have so many examples of the obsession. Like, dude, one time I rollerbladed to go get something with some money that I had stolen, and I got robbed at gunpoint. And this guy had like a gun to my face and was like, you know, give me the money, basically. And I remember the first thought I had was like, how am I going to get high now?
mm-hmm.
I didn't care about getting shot. I was just like, what am I going to do now, man?
Yeah.
Like, now I got to go find more money. You know, it's just like, dude, it's that strong.
It's that strong.
And for me to like just be able to just navigate life and think about others,
Yeah.
and on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know, like I think about what I can bring to life and what I can bring to others and be of service. That's a transformation, dude.
Mm-hmm.
That's a transformation that is a literal miracle, dude.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like they always say, like, you know, put the effort that you put into getting dope into your recovery. Just put 1/16 of that into your recovery, and your life will fucking transform.
Totally.
Because exactly like you, I have so many of the same experiences. Like, I went through hell and back to get a $20 bag of dope.
Yeah.
So many fucking times.
Mm-hmm.
I paid someone to drive up from San Antonio.
You pay extra. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like just like some of the most idiotic things where I'm like, did I really just waste my whole day doing that?
Yes, time, dude.
You know? Time. And all my energy and like I just humiliated myself.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, like you'll be in the car.
I don't even want to tell those stories, you know?
You'll be in the car waiting, and they'll be like, you know, like, said he was going to be here an hour ago. And you're like, all right, 5 more minutes, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes goes by, and you're like, all right, 5 more, and that's it. And you just keep crossing this personal line, you know? It's like...
Dude, I do have one story. Okay, so we were waiting on some dope, and they were like, okay, it's going to be like an hour, right? And I was like, all right, I'll chill for an hour. That's fine. And like in that hour, I could have gone to Walgreens and like gotten a fresh bag of like syringes, because I knew that my buddy who I was hanging out with, he only had syringes that he had already used and he had Hep C.
Sure.
But like I was so restless, and I was just sitting in my car, just like waiting, just like so restless that I couldn't even, I was so overwhelmed that I couldn't even go and like get what I needed so that I could like safely use once I got the shit.
Sure.
I just sat there and gripped my fucking fists, and it ended up being literally 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I just sat there. And like, granted, I only had like, you know, money for the dope, and I didn't have the money for a $10 bag of syringes, but like I could have figured it out, you know. I could figure anything out in my addiction. Get a little less dope to get a clean rig, so I don't have to shoot up with somebody who has Hep C, you know. And like, by the grace of God, I didn't get Hep C, you know. But it's like in those moments where you're just like, I am pathetic because I just did that, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what addiction's like, dude.
Yeah.
And that's the type of shame that we're having to release, you know, is like, okay, well, do you know what it's like to, you know, I don't think I'm ready to talk about it on the podcast, but just do some of the things that I did for drugs, you know? It's like, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Anyway, dude, I want to wrap this up and just ask a little bit about like what your life looks like today. And, you know, you've already talked a little bit about the transformation, the, you know, spiritual transformation that's taken place in your life and what life is like today. But yeah, if you could just go into a little bit of detail about like what you're doing for work, what you do in recovery, and how you help out and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, life is really big now. So I got to make sure recovery stays big because, I could be in danger of like life getting big and AA or recovery getting small.
Yeah.
So like I said, I do something every day for that. I work in tech sales, man. So like when you and I met at the sober, I was working at the grocery store, right? Sprouts.
Sprouts. Yeah.
I'd walk to no car, walk to Sprouts. Cashier loved it, by the way.
Yeah.
I was the funnest cashier in there. But I knew eventually, like, you got to go back to work, right? Like the early recovery jobs are great, but yeah, it was time to go back to work. So yeah, I do tech sales and work remote. Life is really good. Did end up getting a car back. I got my fiance back, who we both went to treatment at the same time. We're engaged. We're going to be getting married in the next couple months. Both have a couple years sober.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many things, man. Relationships are healed. We're looking at houses, like all of these like normal people things for my age.
You got braces?
I got braces, dude. So it's been I love this part of recovery is like I can focus on a long-term goal.
Right.
It doesn't have to be an immediate, fix. Like it doesn't have to be something that I can go get today or go buy.
Yeah.
Like I'm saving money, like I'm working on my health. I'm like doing these things that aren't overnight solutions to issues. And these are all things that I completely ignored in addiction. And it's one of my favorite things to do. It's like, what's going to be the goal for this year?
Yeah.
I'm doing this thing this year where I didn't buy any merchandise, no clothes, no stuff. I can buy groceries, cleaning supplies, and that's it. For stuff, right?
Right.
I feel completely fulfilled. Like
you probably saved tons of money.
I'm saving money
because you were a big spender when I first met you.
Well, I looked around
after you got the job at Sprouts, then you started working sales.
Yeah.
And you bought the Range Rover. Then you're like,
yeah,
balling out a little bit.
Yeah, and then in December last year, I looked around and I was like, I think I have everything I need.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to buy any stuff this year.
Right.
So yeah, man, and that's been a year-long thing, dude, and I've been great with it.
Right.
I can live in alignment with my values.
Yes.
I have the power to do that, and it's just still so exciting, dude. Yep. I can show up on time. That was such a struggle. It still amazes me that like I get to places 15 minutes early, because I actually care about the other person.
I'm still working on that. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to just circle back real quick to Jeff that you're helping out with his deck and just like beautifying his backyard and stuff. If you want to just tell the listener a little bit about how you met him.
I'm actually going to meet him right after this.
Dude,
it's his birthday today. So Jeff is an 83-year-old. He turns 83 today. He was born in 1940. And coincidentally, I met him. I got this old man tattooed right here one day, and I was leaving the tattoo parlor, and I saw this super old man. Not super old if you're in your 80s, but he's in his 80s.
He's old.
And walking 1 mile an hour and just looking around like kind of lost. And I was like, let me see if this dude needs a ride, and we became fast friends, dude. I gave him a ride home that day, and I've been visiting him a couple times a week ever since. That was like a year and a half ago, so a while.
So cool.
And dude, I get just as much out of hanging out with him as he gets out of me, if not more. I always want to tell me a story. Tell me, what does it feel like when this happens in life? What should I, how do we feel about death? You're closer to me. Like we have very deep discussions. And I think he's just has a lot of wisdom to share.
Dude, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I've always wanted to give back to him. His backyard was completely overgrown. You helped me. We went in there over the course of a couple weekends and We had the freaking bobcat. We were doing tree removal. We replaced fencing. Like, we just did a complete makeover of the backyard. And the last thing left is the deck. He's got missing boards in his deck, so pretty dangerous situation. And so I did a GoFundMe, and I reached my goal last night.
Did you?
Yeah.
No
so,
way.
Yeah, I'm going to meet the lumber guy right now.
Nice,
Yeah.
dude.
So we're going to get that deck replaced.
Talk about God working in your life.
Totally, dude.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, like, it's not just blessings for me. It's blessings for people around me.
Exactly.
And I'm a part of that blessing. Like, I'm a part of the mixture that is blessing, And, dude, again, just such a transformation from where I came from. If I would have picked how recovery would look when the day I got sober 2 years from now, I would have sold myself way short.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, life is just incredible.
Right.
And more is being revealed all the time.
It's such a magical experience. It really is. I'm even feeling the magic right now. Like, I'm feeling the chills. I'm feeling this spiritual connection that we're having. Like, just hearing about what's happened in your life, and then also kind of comparing that to where I'm at 9.5 months sober. Like, my future is going to be fucking insane.
It's so bright.
It's so bright. Like, it is going to be so freaking magical.
Yeah, as bright as your hair, dude.
As bright as my hair. I mean, dude, I need a fresh bleach. This is the darkest my hair has been since I dyed it black at the sober house.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was wild.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, like, that whole relationship with Jeff would not have happened if you were selfish and you just drove right past him.
Dude, I might have robbed him.
You might have robbed him.
You never know.
You never know. Exactly.
No.
And that's, in recovery, they say selfishness and self-centeredness will kill us.
Yeah.
That's the root of our troubles. And at the core, that's so true, because I've lived so selfishly in so many different ways, whether it's not answering a phone call, whether it's not, doing the next right thing to that random person on the side of the road, whether it's, just knowing in my heart, like, or in my head, like, oh, I could have done this, and this, but then just not doing it. Right. And like, every moment that you have that opportunity to like do something outside of yourself, it's magical. It's totally fucking magical. And that's what we learn in recovery is selfishness and self-centeredness will lead us back to our addiction.
Yep.
And if we can just, there's a few different principles where, like, if we can live by those principles, and it really is it's an owner's manual for life.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have if you have resentments, talk about them, work through it. If you have fears, talk about them, work through it. If you're dishonest, talk about it, work through it. When you're selfish, talk about it and work through it. Be of service. Find community, create community, and everything you do the next thing that's selfless.
Yep.
And you're golden.
Yep.
And then the blessings and the miracles just come out of fucking thin air, Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
What a conversation, dude.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Glad to do it.
Dude, totally. Thank you for everything you shared. I'm glad I got to learn a little bit more about you and your whole story.
You're welcome.
Right on, brother. Much love to you. Love you. Oh, yeah. That's good stuff. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed. We'll catch you later next week. Thank you again, Soul.